Hello and welcome back to The Good, the Bad and the Ugly Show, and today's video is all about Black Sabbath. That's right, so today we are rating every Black Sabbath album from worst to best. Okay, so a lot of stuff on Sabbath at the moment. Obviously they've just played their Back to the Beginning final concert in Birmingham, in the Aston Villa Park. So yeah, I saw a bit of that on YouTube. It looked great. Obviously, it's a miracle you got them all back there, especially Bill Ward. I mean, it's fantastic stuff. A lot of people have covered that though, so we're not going on about that today. What we're doing is just going through all the albums, like rating them from worst to best. So, Black Sabbath. As we all know, anyone watching this video probably fully aware of who Black Sabbath are. So you have Ozzy Osbourne, Tony Iommi, Geezer Butler and Bill Ward as the core members, the founding members. And then of course, throughout the years, you had the amazing Ronnie James Dio, even Ian Gillan sang for a little while, but countless others. We'll go through that as we go through the albums. We'll mention the people involved. But yeah, that original four lineup for me, classic stuff. So, yeah, as you also know, they started out in Birmingham. They mostly came from kind of humble working class backgrounds, especially Ozzy Osbourne. Now, there's an interesting family history right there. Go and read his book, I Am Ozzy. Also, read the Geezer Butler book, Into the Void, which I've just finished reading, which I've got a lot of my information that I think is probably correct from. He seems like quite a down-to-earth guy, even though he's quite into the whole, like, strange, spiritual, you know, spiritual ghost paranormal stuff. He loves all that, but he seems pretty rooted in reality apart from that stuff. Well, maybe including that stuff. I don't know, I'm rambling. Anyhow, so starting out as the Polka Tulk Blues Band and then changing the name to Earth and then eventually settling on Black Sabbath. Black Sabbath inspired by the Mario Bava film, Black Sabbath. Fantastic film, go and watch that if you haven't seen it. He also did some great other films, Bay of Blood, Black Sunday, all that stuff. Anyhow, they got their inspiration from watching that film, Black Sabbath, and also the Dennis Wheatley books like The Devil Rides Out and all that stuff as well. Fantastic. I've got a bit of a collection of Dennis Wheatley downstairs anyway. Also great stuff.
Why did you pick the name in the first place?
Well, you know, why did the Beatles pick the Beatles, you know? Nobody knows.
But this is a name which has got connotations, Black Sabbath, hasn't it?
Well, you know, so the Rolling Stones got something to do with landslides, you know. A name means whatever you want to interpret it to be, you know. We like the name Black Sabbath, so it's
We just like the name, you know.
that's all it is, just a name, Black Sabbath.
And you've got obviously a lot of other people liked it as well, you know.
What other things do you like?
Ice cream.
I like all sorts of different things, you know.
You had bands like Coven and Black Widow and all that, and Black Sabbath kind of came along at that point, but they were the first to really do it, especially in England, and to do it on such a scale. Also, they've been cited as being the creators of heavy metal music, which I actually firmly agree with. As much as I love like Deep Purple and Led Zeppelin, and I kind of hold them as like very early kind of pre-runners to heavy metal, I think Sabbath really started it with the riff and the doom and the dark and the image. You know, I think Sabbath were like the original metal band for me anyway. I mean, if you disagree, put in the comments. But for me, like Sabbath are where it all began. You know, that's like the template, I think, as far as I can see. Before we dive straight into the worst to best, I think I'm going to go over a little bit of my history with Black Sabbath. Because a lot of the comments we get on these videos are stuff like, you weren't there, you're too young, you don't remember, you don't know what you're talking about. Well, if you think like that, you're already too old and you've become everything you hate. So think before you comment on that one. Because I'm not going to be doing that when I'm like 60 odd, 70 odd, 80 odd. I'm not going to be saying you young, but I probably will. Fuck it. So I go back about as far as the age of 4 or 5. My dad put on the first Black Sabbath album on vinyl in my living room. I listened to it and it changed my life. And absolutely true. It sounds corny, it sounds like a cliche, but it is true. Anyhow, you fast forward a few years to my early teens and I rediscovered Sabbath because there was an amazing TV series called Rock Family Trees that broadcast somewhere in the mid-90s, early to mid-90s. It was fantastic, based on the book. I can't remember the guy who wrote it, came up with it. I'll put a picture on the screen. Yeah, anyway, there was a TV series of it. And that was my like gateway into a lot of these bands they covered on this stuff. But there's a whole episode dedicated to Black Sabbath called Sabbath Bloody Sabbath, and that to this day, that is still my favourite documentary on Black Sabbath. It's still the definitive one, the one I go to. I love it. Some great interviews in there. It's a pretty clear-cut, full story as well. The band. life-changing stuff. So that's how I got into Sabbath. Anyway, been a big fan for about 35 to 40 years, I guess. But yeah. So coming in at number 19, we have Forbidden from 1995.
Well, let's talk a little bit about Black Sabbath, because you have a new album out titled Forbidden. Who's actually playing on this record with you? Because it's a different lineup to the last album.
It is, yes. It's Cozy Powell. It's the same lineup as we had in 1990, actually. It's Cozy Powell on drums, Neil Murray on bass, Tony Martin vocals, Jeff Nichols keyboards, and myself.
And there's a bit of a body count connection going on with this record. Could you tell us a little bit about how did you get involved with Ernie C? When did you hook up with him, and why did you want to use him as a producer?
Well, it was mainly through Ice-T, actually. Ice-T is a big fan of the band, and I wanted to use Ice-T on a track. And so when I went to meet Ice-T at the hotel, Ernie C was sitting there, so I met Ernie C, and he was a nice guy.
So this album, I don't know if it was a disappointment, because Sabbath had been a little bit ropey in the 90s and the late 80s anyway, but this album wasn't bought by many people. It wasn't a successful one. In fact, I think it ended their career with IRS Music. I think they just kind of thought, well, this isn't going anywhere. The album really didn't do much at all. Having a guest spot as well from Ice-T, I think they were looking to kind of rejuvenate something. Oh, let's go into this whole like kind of rap and metal thing. That had already been done for about the last 10 years. I mean, starting in about 1986, I think, with Run DMC and Aerosmith had already kind of like gone there. Public Enemy and Anthrax. I mean, then you had like Rage Against the Machine, and you had like Cypress Hill doing it by this point. I think it had already become a bit of a cliche, so I don't think that was a good way to rejuvenate. I know Ice-T was a massive fan of Black Sabbath and Motorhead. He's got tattoos and stuff to prove it. And I quite like Ice-T's music, but I don't really think Ice-T and Black Sabbath was a very good fit, really. And also, this wasn't really Black Sabbath. This was Tony Iommi and his band. It really should have just been his solo stuff. Keeping the name Sabbath going, I think, was a bit of a mistake at this point. But these albums have been kind of revitalised recently. I noticed they've been re-released, and they're now in HMV, like on vinyl, like new remastered pressings. I'm not sure who's buying them. I think people are going to be a little bit disappointed, personally. But I don't know. I mean, there are like interesting bits on every one of these albums, but it's not the Sabbath that, not the classic Sabbath that we all know and love. You had Tony Martin doing the vocals on it as well. He'd become a little bit of a mainstay in Sabbath during that time, beginning in the late 80s, and sort of still here at this point. This was his final album with Black Sabbath. Yeah, Tony Martin never worked with them again after this. The Illusion of Power was the one with Ice-T guesting on vocals. It's not great. It's not terrible. Well, it's not great though. Yeah, so there's a reason why this comes in at the last point. And the artwork as well was a little bit kind of naff. During this time, Geezer Butler started his own band, his own solo band called Geezer, which is GZR. And it had featuring members of other metal bands at the time, like Fear Factory and other various people. But the album that they did was really fucking good. I can't remember the name of it. Was it called like Plastic Planet? Something like that. But they did a song called Give Up the Ghost, which is all about, it was kind of attacking Black Sabbath. It was just saying that it's time to let go. Like you're becoming a bit of a laughing stock. You should just stop, you know, just move on, do something else. That's the kind of like message behind the song. And that massively upset Tony Iommi, obviously, because I mean, they were like buddies as well as being bandmates, and kind of, it felt like a big betrayal, you know. The song's actually really fucking good, man. If you go and check it out if you haven't heard it, I love it personally. I love that whole album actually. Geezer's band were really good. Sadly, the same can't be said about Sabbath at that time. So yeah, there was a lot of friction there going on. Anyway, but I think we'll move on. We'll move on to the next one. Coming in at 18 from 1987, we have The Eternal Idol.
Hello, the band's brand new singer, Mr. Tony Martin.
Watcha.
How you doing, guys?
All right.
Tony, let me begin by clarifying exactly who is in Black Sabbath at the moment, because the last time we heard from the band was the Seventh Star album. There seemed to be... Well, to be honest with you, I got completely confused. I didn't know who was in the band in the end. Who's in the band?
You got confused.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's Tony, of course, Tony Martin on vocals. There he is, this one here. Terry Chimes on drums, who you might know from The Clash and
Cherry Bombs and people like that, yes.
which is unusual for us, but it really does fit in. It fits in great.
Who have you got on the bass?
On bass, we've got Joe Burt, who's just recently come with us, and Jeff Nichols on keyboards.
Right, Jeff's been with the band a long time, though, hasn't he?
Yeah, we can't get rid of him. We've been for ages, isn't it?
Tony, what's it like actually filling the shoes of people like, obviously, Ozzy Osbourne, Ronnie Dio, Ian Gillan? I mean, do you feel that pressure on you?
Not really. I mean, I'm confident in what I'm doing. I'm fortunate enough to have a sort of voice that can cope with the range of those singers, so I'm able to put that across as it should be heard.
Right, listen, let's talk about the new album. This is the brand new Black Sabbath album. Where shall I hold it? This way?
How many of you out there have heard this album or are even aware of it? I didn't. Growing up for years, I kept seeing this album in record shops. I just never really thought about buying it. It had a statue on the album cover, and it looked a bit weird, a bit naff, a bit weird again. I didn't really know what it was all about, so I never really bothered buying it. It's one of the last Sabbath albums I ever listened to, like, out of all of them. There's a song called Born to Lose. There's Glory Ride, Ancient Warrior. Some of this stuff is all right. It's kind of cheesy late 80s, like, heavy rock sort of metal. I don't know. It's not my cup of tea. Let's just say that. There's a reason why I put these albums at the end here. It's probably quite an obvious thing. I guess everyone's list is probably similar. I don't know. Some people really highly rate these albums. I don't know. Personally, nah. This one is not their strongest. Not their strongest. Okay, not going to bother covering it much more. Here's the album cover.
Well, they have to stand there for
Don't stand there for 8 hours or something having all that done. But it is from a sculpture. It's very similar look, and it's called The Eternal Line.
Not only is it a nice sleeve, by the way, but the contents are pretty natty as well.
Let's move on to number 17. So, 17 in the worst to best Black Sabbath albums is an album called Tyre from 1990.
Why we called it Tyre, don't ask me, but we did. And then we brought in Neil Murray to play bass. He also done the tour as well, the Headless Cross tour. So, there was quite a few named people in that band, and it was a good band.
Is it like a Celtic or like a Nordic rock? There's a lot of this like Nordic metal going on. There was stuff like Bathory and this kind of like Viking or Nordic kind of like themed metal bands. This was kind of treading on that sort of territory, thinking let's go down that route. There's a song called the Sabbath Stones. There's the Battle of Tyre, Odin's Court. So yeah, it's going into like mythology and that kind of mythical rock, I guess is the best way of putting it. Mythological metal, I don't know. But yeah, ancient battles and Vikings and cups and horns and stuff, that kind of thing. You'd think it might do alright. The album cover is weird. Yeah, what does the album cover remind me of? Nightmare, the children's TV program Nightmare, where the people would, I don't know if you've seen it, there it is. It reminds me of the graphics for stuff like that, and kind of like early like computer graphics, when computer graphics were starting to get quite good, but not quite on the scale of put it on an album cover. That's what it kind of looks like to me, a little bit. I don't know, it reminds me of like the cover art of like a Commodore 64 game, or a Spectrum or something. It's not a great album. Again, just after this, Sabbath did a reunion with Ozzy Osbourne, and then they went off and did a around the same time they also went off and did another album with Ronnie James Dio and got that version of Sabbath back together. But we'll cover that in a minute. So this was kind of like weird times. Yeah, I don't think this album did very well. I didn't know anything about it. I found it like by chance in a record shop once, and it was on a CD collection called Classic Rock, where it had like a weird album cover. It looked like a freebie you'd get with a rock magazine. I'm thinking, what the fuck is this? So I bought it on CD, took it home, and is it Sabbath? I don't know. I'm not sure, to be honest. That's how I felt at the time. I'm like, I don't know what this is. Anyway, we'll move forward. A lot of people, as I say, a lot of people love this stuff, and that's fine. That's your opinion. This is mine. That's how the world works. We all have assholes, you know. Sorry, we all have opinions. So, yeah, anyhow, this is my opinion on this one. It's not quite as good as their early stuff, but it's not as bad as the albums we just had. Let's move along. So at 16, we have Headless Cross from 1989.
Certainly a new band, yeah. Yeah, I think it's gone on away from the old Sabbath days into a new era of more of the 90s sort of sound. It's like still retaining the same sound, but sort of updating it more, with sort of the things we're doing now.
So this album featured Tony Martin on vocals, and again, Cozy Powell on the drums, which is great. Well, the drums are probably one of the better things about this album. Actually, to be honest, if I'm going to be truthful here, I have a kind of sort of love for this album, just because I remember buying it for £1 in a record store in Bristol and quite enjoying it. The album cover, as cheesy as it is kind of going back to the Sabbath that I kind of knew and loved. Headless Cross I actually quite like. It's typical like 80s metal song, but I like it. I don't know, there's something about it I like. Kill and the Spirit World and Nightwing, they're also kind of interesting tracks. I think this has got a cheesy element to it that I quite like, because it's kind of going back more to the kind of Sabbath, the kind of witches and like crosses and spookiness of the Sabbath that we know and love. I quite like it personally. It's not a terrible album, it's not a good album by any stretch of the imagination, but it's not a terrible album as well. So yeah, fuck it, it's in at number 16. It's alright, it's there, it's an album, it happened, it's a thing. So at 15 we have Seventh Star from 1986.
We've had people in the band that's been named people, and the last ones with Ian Gillan, we had Bev Bevan with us, we've had, you name it, we've had them. And I wanted this time people who are unknown, who are equally, if not better, than the original people, And this is what we've got here, and I love it.
I think it shows in the new LP. We'd like to play a track off of that coming up soon, but do you have fond memories of every incarnation of Black Sabbath?
No.
No?
Of the original Black Sabbath?
No, just every incarnation that's gone by. I mean, certainly you must have memories from each one.
Oh, you do.
Because it's almost like you've gone
Some
through
of them
four or five bands now.
Yes, you can't help it. The one, actually, the Ian Gillan period seemed like it didn't exist. It was that quick. It was here and gone.
I particularly like the Dio period.
I did, yeah.
Is that a good one for you?
That was, yeah. In fact, this period now is very similar. It's better now, but it is that same sort of feeling.
So this album, an interesting one. So this began life as a Tony Iommi solo album. This was the first album they did since the Black Sabbath really fell apart after Born Again. That was a real shit show, and that was just at the end of like the long run that Sabbath had of no gaps in between albums, a continuous run, if you like. And then that all fucked up and went south. But Tony Iommi tried to make a solo album, and the record company said, "You're not big enough to have a solo album. No one knows who you are," which is kind of insulting. So the album cover, you can clearly see it's been pasted onto a backdrop with Black Sabbath featuring Tony Iommi, Seventh Star. To me, that's what it looks like. It looks like that should have just been the Tony Iommi album. It's even got that kind of cheesy 80s kind of album cover of him with a tassely jacket stood in the desert looking kind of moody. I love it. It's what solo albums look like at that point. But they just stuck it onto it's just been copy and pasted onto the Black Sabbath name, which is just not a cool thing. And people could tell, I'm sure people could tell. Also, there's a bootleg album I have called Star of India, which is outtakes. And now, this confuses me as well, because I always thought Seventh Star sounds like an Indian restaurant, okay? I don't know why. It just sounds like a generic Indian restaurant you might get on the side of a road in Birmingham. Star of India, even more so. What's the connection? Why is the bootleg album called Star of India? If anyone can tell me in the comments, let me know, because I'm baffled by it. I really am. Was it an Indian restaurant thing? Is this album an Indian restaurant? I don't know, man. I don't know. It's all just, yeah. So, tracks. So we have In for the Kill, No Stranger to Love, Danger Zone. What else do we have? Angry Heart. Now, Danger Zone's actually kind of funny. I quite like that. It's quite a sort of cheesy 80s kind of ballady, rocky ballad thing. I don't know. It's quite fun. Anyhow, Glenn Hughes on vocals, and boy, don't you just know it. So kind of moving on from Ian Gillan, let's get another Deep Purple, sort of slightly over the top singer to put on this. I mean, yeah, I don't know, man. There's probably a lot of love for this album. I'm missing, if so, I'm missing the point here, and I'm okay to do that. If I'm missing the point, I'm missing the point. It's fine. It's all right. It's not terrible. I mean, I've got all these albums. All 19 Sabbath albums are on my playlist. I walk around. I've got a playlist of 1,000 million albums, but they're on there. All these albums are on there. So songs pop up every now and then as I'm kind of wandering around, or you know, doing whatever. And yeah, I always enjoy them. Like if it's Sabbath, it's good no matter how bad it is. If that makes sense. Probably not. Moving on. So moving on to number 14, we have Cross Purposes from 1994.
Hi, I'm Tony Martin from Black Sabbath, and we have
Tony Iommi
and
Bill Ward.
You're watching Fuya Metal. Rock hard. We'll see you soon.
So this album, Cross Purposes, an interesting one. Again, yeah, a couple of tracks that stood out a little bit on this album. One being Virtual Death, which kind of sounds like almost like Alice in Chains or like a bit sort of grungy. Like, there's grungy moments on here, like they were going for almost like they were trying to kind of compete with the grunge thing, which was a big mistake because, as we were all aware of, the whole grunge killed my career applied to so many bands of the metal persuasion around this time, about, you know, the early 90s. So I guess trying to compete with that kind of thing, it's like when bands tried to compete with punk. When punk came along, it was a bit, this thing's kind of out to get you, and you just got to stand your ground, wait for the tidal wave to go over, and you might still be there. You might not be, but you might still be there. Some bands survive these things, you know. Some bands. But anyhow, I feel like they tried to kind of move along a little bit, and I quite like what I hear on it. I mean, Virtual Death's really good. Another thing with this album is they got Geezer Butler back, and that's something. Cross Purposes personnel, we had Tony Martin, Bobby Randinelli, I don't know who that is. But we had Geezer Butler back with this, and Geezer's writing songs, and Geezer's bass is so like recognisable. This sounds more like Sabbath just immediately because you've got that sort of doom, like you've got the two there. You've got Tony Iommi and Geezer Butler both playing together, and something about that builds that kind of wall of Sabbath, like that backing group. That the bare bones are back, you know, like it's rebuilding itself. Like that dude from Hellraiser, Frank, he's like rebuilding himself from the ground upwards, you know, he's coming back. Sabbath are like rebuilding. If they just carried on, and if Geezer Butler had stayed, and then they'd got like, you know, Bill Ward, and then you know, Ozzy, it could have kind of like, the beast could have risen. But no, it wasn't to be the case. After this album, Geezer Butler left, and that's when the whole fallout happened with Give Up the Ghost and all that stuff. We mentioned it earlier on. But anyhow, there are bits of this album that I really like. As I say, it's above those other ones just because Geezer's back. Geezer and Tony Iommi together, they're just going to create something that's better than if they're not together, if that makes sense. It's a bit like, say, if the Beatles had reformed, if you'd had like two of the Beatles back, it probably would have been better than any of their solo stuff. That depends on which Beatle, doesn't it? I don't know. I'm not making much sense. But anyway, I like this album, and I put it higher than those other ones. And that's that, I guess. So coming in at number 13, we have the almighty Born Again from 1983.
Here with us tonight, Tony Iommi, longtime member of the band. Geezer Butler.
Older.
Old. And brand new member, Ian Gillan.
Hello.
Good to have you all here in the studio tonight. Your first visit to MTV, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
New record out from the band. It's called Born Again. Give everybody a look at the cover of Born Again. And there has been some rumors floating around, at least around here anyway. I've been hearing it on the radio. It's been in the local press that this album called Born Again has been titled Born Again because the band has been born again in the Christian sense.
No.
Want to comment on that?
No.
Yeah, comment.
Oh, not at all, no.
I think it's just a question of... It's just a question of people immediately leap to the conclusion that there's some sort of Christian satanic connotation. But it's really, I mean, no one's really got an exclusive on that phrase, you know. I mean, it's really Born Again because the band's new, revitalised. It's also the title of one of the first songs we did in the studio, and it seemed like quite an evocative phrase, so we decided to use it for the cover.
So, yeah, now, this is an interesting album. Again, I kind of like it and kind of don't at the same time. There's a whole bunch of songs on here that I do like. I like Ian Gillan as well. I like Deep Purple. Ian Gillan's great. Anyhow, yeah, Sabbath and Ian Gillan. So, was this Deep Black or Purple Sabbath? Could have been, you know. It's a bit confusing to fans, though, when you do that, because these two bands were kind of like almost like a competitive thing. It's a bit like people saying that the Stones and the Beatles should join together, what's left of them, or the Who and the Beatles and the Stones or whatever. No, don't do that. It just confuses shit. These bands were like at competition with each other. These were different bands from the same genre, so it confuses the fuck out of people when you put them together. I mean, solo stuff okay, but the band itself shouldn't it kind of taints it in a way, if that makes sense. Maybe not. I don't know. Anyhow, this album was a bit of a fucking shit show, to be honest. The tour was amazing. So you had the whole Spinal Tap thing. So if you've seen This Is Spinal Tap, there's a scene where... there's a whole scene surrounding the Stonehenge fiasco, where they build a Stonehenge and they get the scale wrong on the blueprints for it. So they end up with instead of a big Stonehenge, they end up with a tiny Stonehenge on stage that's in danger of being crushed by the dwarfs dancing around it. They got dwarfs to play the druids so they'd look smaller with the Stonehenge. It's all just so silly, but great. I love that film. But weirdly enough, that wasn't copied from this. So there's a track on this album called Stonehenge. And now what Sabbath did is they made the Stonehenge like way too big. These great big set pieces for Stonehenge. So they couldn't get them into most of the concert halls. And when they finally did, when they played venues that were big enough, one such occasion, they had a dwarf dressed up as the baby from the album cover to dance around on top of the Stonehenge, on the middle stone. And there was a demonic scream that comes on as the dwarf, falls off the back of the stone. Well, apparently the scream continued because someone had moved the mattresses. Now, I love that story. That's hilarious. That came from the mouth of Ian Gillan, that one. And also Geezer Butler talked about it. But they wondered that whether Spinal Tap had actually just taken that idea and shifted it around. But it was the same time. So Spinal Tap were actually... In fact, the Spinal Tap sketch... Spinal Tap was actually... So Spinal Tap began as an idea a few years before this, and it had been written. It took a long time to write it, put it out as a film. So this actually, Spinal Tap actually predates the Black Sabbath thing. So this is life imitating art, which is just fantastic. This band had turned into Spinal Tap by this point, and I don't think that's a great thing. Not for the band. For us, it's wonderful, but not for the band. You don't want to become this parody. It's not a great thing. Poor Bill Ward was struggling massively with alcoholism at this point, so he came back for the album and then couldn't do the tour or something along those lines. But he was on the album though, so the album does consist of all of Sabbath, but with Ian Gillan on vocals as the only non-original member. So songs you had Trashed is very good. I like that. Disturbing the Priest I really like. I always thought, in a jokey way, Disturbing the Priest, you can imagine a priest sitting there writing his sermons out and there's kids banging on his window. And, but apparently that's right. When I read Geezer's book, that's actually what he meant. He meant disturbing the priest as in, disturbing his day rather than actually disturbing him with images or whatever. So I kind of like that. He was on that wavelength anyway. Also, Digital Bitch is good. Zero the Hero is great. I enjoy that. It's kind of like a chanty metal song, or rock or whatever you want to call it. But a chanty song, like you sing at football matches, or something. But anyway, yeah, the album cover is pretty interesting. I know a lot of people hate the album cover. I don't really mind it. It's just a demonic baby. That image was also used by somebody else. I can't quite think of who it was now. Depeche Mode, yeah. Depeche Mode used the same baby, stock picture, but as a baby rather than a demonic thing. But I'll put the, on the screen, and there we go, look, Depeche Mode was first as well. I don't know. But yeah, 1983, Black Sabbath. This kind of killed them though after this. They thought, well, fuck this, we need to have a break. And also there were high tensions between Ian Gillan and the rest of the band as well. He was staying in a caravan outside of the big manor house. The rest of them were staying in, and they were playing practical jokes on each other that were kind of going a bit wrong and causing friction. Go and read Geezer Butler's book, Into the Void, if you want to get the full scoop on this stuff. I love it though. It's a real turbulent time. You can make a film about this shit, man. I hope they do. I hope they make a Sabbath film one day. That'd be great. Put all this interesting stuff in there. It's rock and roll, nightmare, They were all getting wasted as well around this point, and up to all kinds of shenanigans. I won't go into them all. I can't remember them all at this precise moment, but go and read the books. The books are brilliant. There's some amazing Sabbath stories out there. So coming in at number 12, we have Dehumanizer from 1992.
Once again, it's reunion time, folks, and I guess we've heard that story before with big bands. Reunifications are quite common these days. Weren't you content with the last lineup?
Yeah, I thought the last lineup was good for what we'd done as that band, But when the opportunity came of putting
this band back together again was there's no comparison, you know.
Dehumanizer was a reunion of the Ronnie James Dio years, featuring Ronnie James Dio on vocals and Vinny Appice on drums. So this was that Heaven, Hell, Mob Rules Sabbath back together again. I like it. It's a great album. It's got a really cheesy album cover, but the album cover to me is a bit like what Maiden were kind of doing at that time, like Maiden's Somewhere in Time or whatever it was called. Yeah, it's similar kind of artwork to that kind of stuff. It's of its time. Let's put it that way. And some great singles from that album as well. Time Machine and TV Crimes. Obviously, like the standout tracks. One of them was featured in Wayne's World, or was it Wayne's World 2? One of those I remember that track appears in. Yeah, no, it's a good album. This was a reunion. They may have made a couple more albums with this lineup as well, but Ozzy Osbourne was misdiagnosed with MS at this point, and he thought he had a few months to live. So he got Sabbath back as a kind of farewell reunion. Ring any bells? There's been a couple of farewell Sabbath reunions, haven't there? Live stuff. Interesting. I wonder if this was the last one. I wonder if there would actually be another one. Who knows? Probably not. I'd probably say it's safe to say this was the final one, but you never know. Never say die. Anyhow, that's coming up later. Anyway, yeah, so this reunion was cut short because they were all invited to come and tour with Ozzy on his final tour, but Ronnie James Dio said no way. He said Ozzy Osbourne was a jackass and he wouldn't appear on stage with him. There had been some tension between the two. There's a famous signed album cover that says Ozzy Osbourne, not Ronnie James Dickhead, on it. I love the tension between them, and they were mouthing off about each other for quite a while. There's a lot of shitty water under the bridge here. Yeah, I'm not sure if they ever really made amends. I don't know. I'd like to think they did, but I'm not sure if they ever did or not. I think the two of them were never gonna be friends. Let's put it that way. But yeah, so Dio just said, fuck you, and they ended it here. They ended it with Sabbath doing the Ozzy shows, and after that, obviously, you had the other albums we talked about earlier on. What came next? Friction, tension, stuff, ups and downs, mainly downs. But yeah, I think this was a good reunion album. I think it's fair. It's a fair one. It's a fair one. It's not great. It's not their best work ever, but yeah, solid enough. So coming in at 11, we have the first of the classic Ozzy Osbourne lineup albums, Never Say Die.
I want to say on behalf of Geezer Butler, Tony Iommi, Bill Ward and myself, Ozzy Osbourne, thanks for the last 10 years, and we hope we're around for another 10 years and another 10 years, because we always hold to you. We're going to carry on now with a number for everyone here tonight. It's a number entitled Black Sabbath. Thank you.
So, this was from 1978. This was their final album with Ozzy Osbourne before they came back and did 13 years later. But anyway, this was their final original lineup album. It's not a great album. It's not a terrible album either. What standout tracks are on here? Johnny Blade, Junior's Eyes, A Hard Road, Air Dance. I quite like A Hard Road, actually. Some of these tracks are really good. Some of them kind of sound like classic Sabbath, but a lot of this album doesn't. And they were kind of changing direction at this point. During Technical Ecstasy, they kind of decided to get away from the whole kind of black satanic thing, which is a massive mistake. Your band's called Black Sabbath. Don't try and not be Black Sabbath because you're Black Sabbath, It's like the Beach Boys trying to get away from the beach, Sort of made your bed at this point. But anyway, the album cover's interesting. It's pilots, yeah. Pilots that look like whiskers. I don't know what the album cover's about, but I quite like it anyway. But yeah, this was the Tension album. Tensions finally rose, and they disbanded. Ozzy Osbourne was sacked.
They fired me, and all this kind. I'm not slagging them, but one of us had to go. And unfortunately enough, looking back, it was me.
It does seem that they were sacking each other quite a lot, though. Geezer Butler was sacked a year before this and then reinstated, so there were tensions. Geezer and Ozzy were going to go off and do their own thing together at one point as well. They were talking about this. Obviously, Ozzy went off and had an amazing solo career. In fact, his solo career sort of beat Sabbath's continuation a little bit. Maybe not at the beginning, but by the mid-80s, Ozzy was a bigger thing than Sabbath were at that point. and obviously we should mention, as we're going to mention the mid-80s, we'll mention Live Aid now as well. They came back and did Live Aid after this. That was the next thing they did after this album together. That was quite a high tension thing as well. Ozzy Osbourne poking Tony Iommi's manager in the eye wasn't a particularly welcomed move. They did a good set. I quite enjoy the Sabbath at Live Aid. Yeah. Anyhow, yeah. Back to Never Say Die. So the actual title track, Never Say Die, is one of Sabbath's like great fucking songs. It's up there with Paranoid and Iron Man stuff. As far as I'm concerned, I think it's brilliant. It does sound a little bit similar to The Boys Are Back in Town. I don't know why. Something about it always felt similar to me with that. But I love it. I think it's a solid, great fucking song. I love their performance of them doing it on Top of the Pops. It's up there with their greats. It's a shame the album isn't as great as the title track, basically. Yeah. Anyway, we'll move on. I like it, but not as much as some of the other stuff, which is the whole point. Anyway, so coming in at number 10. So we're now on to the top 10 now. So this video will end at some point, or will it go back to the beginning? Who knows? Never Say Die. But back at number 10, top 10, we have 13. Was that confusing? Probably.
The magic was about the spark was with each other, and you know, we just sort of like our destiny to go and do this album, and everything just fell into place.
So 13, coming out in the year 2013. You had Brad Wilkes on drums and Rick Rubin producing. So the drums fiasco bullshit. So I believe that was a problem with Sharon Osbourne and Bill Ward. Bill Ward said that he was made an offer that he couldn't accept, I think was the word. There were a lot of like weird things flying around at that point. I think Sharon was being a bit controlling as Ozzy's manager. I mean, that's just what I've read from like Geezer Butler's book. It could be totally wrong. I don't know, but that's what I've read anyway. Apologies if that's incorrect. I don't hate Sharon Osbourne either, by the way. I know there's a lot of hatred for her with Black Sabbath fans. A bit like Yoko with Beatles fans, but I don't hate any of these people. She's the fucking child of Don Arden. How could you not be a ruthless business person if you're the child of Don Arden? Just saying. Come on now. I think she seems like a nice person. I like the Osbournes. I watch their podcasts. So yeah, I think this was a great album. A great return to form. God is Dead. Great track. A lot of good stuff on here. Peace of Mind. Age of Reason. All just good stuff. This is Black Sabbath back together. Sadly, minus Bill Ward. But the core members, apart from him, back together again. Writing together. It's pretty bloody good, actually. It's nice to have. It was a real welcome thing at the time as well. I mean, 2013 doesn't feel like that long ago. It's over 10 years now. It's crazy, man. But yeah, that was a great album. Great album cover as well. Yeah, I love it. This is Black Sabbath back to being Black Sabbath again after all these years. An album that was supposed to happen around the sort of mid to late 90s as well. They got back together around kind of, I think it was 97, 98. Sometime around then. They were rehearsing in a barn, and they said the magic wasn't there. They couldn't get themselves together, so sadly that just never happened. But it's nice that it did finally happen in 2013. Yeah, it's a great album. I really don't have much to say about it, except for I like it. I enjoy it. It's not my favourite, but it's by far not the worst. It's a very good return to form. This also had a tour that came with it, and that was like the final. That was sort of listed as the end. At the end of Black Sabbath, the final thing. Shockingly, Tony Iommi was diagnosed with cancer during this time as well, and it looked pretty damn bleak for a while. It's amazing, superb that he's still here, and he was able to do this back to the beginning thing recently, and he seems to be okay at the moment. You know, all things considering. Hopefully, cross our fingers, do all that stuff. I don't know, whatever. But yeah, no, it's good that he seems to be good at the moment. It's fantastic. Because obviously Ronnie James Dio died of stomach cancer, around this sort of time, maybe a couple of years before. Sabbath did another album. I'll mention this one now. It's not in the top, it's not in the 90. I don't consider it a Sabbath album, but it kind of is. But they did a band called Heaven and Hell, where that was the reformation again of the Mob Rules Heaven and Hell lineup, and they did another album with them in 2009. They did an album called The Devil You Know with Heaven and Hell, which is also a very, very good album as well. Another great reunion around the same kind of time.
Okay, let's do an album. And we did, and this was exactly the way it was supposed to be. Just like the early days. It was just like Heaven and Hell again. A lot more fun. And we survive within the things that we all are now. There's no jealousy. There's no one whispering behind anyone's back at all. That just never happens. The friendship just supersedes what we do as musicians now. And that's always been the most important thing to me. I can always count on any of them for anything that I need. So this is a wonderful, wonderful time of all of our lives. Heaven and Hell has made a great difference in just my attitude as a human being now. So I'm just so happy that it did happen for us all.
Anyhow, I'd like to mention that album in here just because we're not going to cover it otherwise. But we are. So, at number 9 from 1981, we have Mob Rules.
Ronnie James Dio, Geezer Butler, and Vinnie Appice.
Yes.
Finally got it right, because your brother Carmen was out, and I was going, Appice, and everyone was doing it. Can't anyone get this name right? So we finally made it.
It's a very good album. Again, there's some great stuff on here. Voodoo, Sign of the Southern Cross is great. Falling Off the Edge of the World is a particular favourite. The electric violin and all that stuff. It's just a great album. I don't know, Slipping Away I like as well. There's a lot to say about this album. The album cover is kind of ridiculous. The album cover looks like a much heavier band. It's like something you'd expect from maybe like Cannibal Corpse or something. It's got that kind of like scary ass album cover that's a little bit not very Sabbathy. It just reminds me of a death metal band or something. Something about it. I don't know. Maybe it's a bit too subtle for that, but I don't know, something. It's a cool album cover, nonetheless. The last to feature Ronnie James Dio lineup for a good number of years. They fell out during this one.
When we went into the studio to record the Mob Rules, the band had no idea of anything. They had no idea for the song, they had no idea for the lyrics, they had no idea for the production, they had no idea for anything. So we pull into this place called Tittenhurst Park, which is right next to Windsor Castle in England. And when we get out of the truck, open up the door, and David Coverdale answers the door. Whitesnake is there recording their first album, and they had just finished the night before, and they were moving out in the process of. So we're moving in, they're moving out. Of course, we had to have them show us all their hot spots in the neighborhood, the good pubs to go to, the good fooderies. And Mr. Coverdale was more than happy to oblige, so myself and the rest of the crew, we all went out, and we had a few cocktails, come back to the house, and by that time the band had arrived. And we got in there, and they just started playing. Ronnie Dio started singing, and next thing you know, we had a song called The Mob Rules.
There's a big fallout between basically Dio and every other member, so it kind of like all came to a head, and that was the end of that. Anyhow, still a great album. If you ain't heard it, go and find it. It's not like one of their most known albums, I think, to be honest, but it's pretty bloody good. So coming in at number 8, we have Technical Ecstasy from 1976.
I was just like drugged up to the max. The drugs had just taken over the band. I think we all felt that, that we'd lost our edge. We weren't working class backstreet kids anymore.
So Technical Ecstasy, this is the album they decided to kind of take a different route from the black, dark, satanic thing and decide to go for more of a kind of classic heavy rock band instead. A big mistake, I think, personally. I think the album cover is quite interesting, nonetheless. I think it's two robots bonking on an escalator, but I don't know, really. I think some of the band didn't like it very much. But there were tensions arising at this point. Punk had come along and was shitting things up a little bit. So a lot of bands had to kind of change their sound. And I think Sabbath thought that going for like, what they called like soft rock, like kind of like Boston and stuff, was kind of like the way forward. I don't know if that's ever the way forward, to be personally honest. I don't know. But yeah, a change of direction, a change of scenery perhaps. I don't think it did them any good, to be honest. Some of the tracks though, Backstreet Kids is great. You Won't Change Me I Also Love as well. Dirty Woman's interesting. It's, there's a lot of synth and stuff on this album. It's not their finest work, but I like it. There's something about it I like. I don't know why. Don't know why I like it more than the Mob Rules, for instance, or their reunion thing. I'm not sure, but there's something classic era Sabbath about it still. It's still hanging on to that, like, what made them great in my head. Like certain tracks, I think tracks like Backstreet Kids and stuff, it's still there. Gypsy's pretty terrible. It's Alright is interesting. That's Bill Ward's like his only kind of song he did kind of on his own. He wrote that and sung the vocals on it. Just kind of an interesting one. There's always like every band has at least one drummer song. If the drummer's not used to kind of being in the forefront, they always do it at least once. And this was kind of like his version, his go at this. Anyway, let's move on to number 7. So coming in, number 7, worst to best Black Sabbath albums is of course Heaven and Hell from 1980.
We liked his voice, and we liked the way things were happening. We were managing to be able to start writing material again. And it was happening quick, so that was the bottom line. We wanted to make an album. We had to carry on.
So Heaven and Hell, I think there are people going to be screaming at this point, what the fuck, this should be higher up or lower down, I don't know. There's a lot of love and a lot of hatred for this album. It's an interesting one. So this was the very first Black Sabbath album to feature a different lineup. So you still had Bill Ward, even though he left during the tour and was replaced by Vinny Appice, who went on to have that classic lineup of the Willie James Dio era. So the last feature Bill Ward before he came back again later on for Born Again. Anyhow, yeah, it's a pretty solid album, to be honest. It's good Dio work. So Neon Nights, obviously a classic. Children of the Sea, another great one. Heaven and Hell, of course. Lady Evil, pretty hilarious. She's a magical, mystical woman. Yeah, that's not one of the greatest highlights of the album. There's better stuff on there, I think. It's very Dio. It's very, very Dio. It's, you know, if you ask yourself how much more Dio could this album be, you know, the answer would be none. You know, none more Dio. But the album cover's great with the angels smoking cigarettes and gambling on the front cover. It's quite cool. Make quite a cool T-shirt. They probably, you know, were fully aware of that. Anyone got a Heaven and Hell T-shirt? Drop in the comments. Let me know. Let me know. Let me know if you got one. Why not? Bit of fun, isn't it? Bit of fun. Bit of fun. So anyhow, yeah, very good album. James Dio as well. Willie James Dio was in a band called Elf, and they were all like about between like kind of 4 and 5 feet tall. Small band of people, band of merry men. But the Elf albums were actually great anyway. Carolina County Ball and all that. I've got all the Elf albums somewhere. I really enjoy them. They're a lot of fun. They're a lot of fun. Good stuff. But yeah, and obviously then he went on to Rainbow. Zippy and Bungle. No, different Rainbow. No, he went on to Rainbow with Richie Blackmore. They fell out in a big way as well. Blimey, that's two ego heavy people there clashing. Interesting. And then yeah, went to Sabbath after this. So apparently, Tony Iommi he had met Willie James Dio previously when Sabbath was still together with Ozzy, and he kind of wanted Dio to step in and take over from Ozzy's position. Anyway, that's how the story goes. I'm not sure if I believe it or not. Anyhow, this happened. Ozzy departed. Ozzy also brought out an album this year which may or may not be better than Heaven and Hell. I don't know. The Blizzard of Oz. That's up to you guys to decide, I guess. I think I know. But yeah, anyway, good album. Good album. A classic. Something I've listened to for years and years and years and don't really give it much thought, really. I kind of put it on and don't really think about whether I like it or not. I think I like it. It's quite high up if I don't. So coming in at number 6. So as you guessed from this point, the top 6 of my favourite Sabbath albums from like worst to best are all classic Ozzy era. You could say I'm biased. I am biased. I think Sabbath with Ozzy Osbourne are Black Sabbath for me. I think that is the definitive, absolute version with the all original founding members, all 4 of them. No exceptions, man. I like the later stuff. I do like the albums with Dio and with Gillan and people. Like, I do listen to them. But on the list, man, like, Ozzy stuff has to come first for me. I don't know. Call me old-fashioned or a twat if you like. Don't put that in the comments. I will delete it. You know, I can't handle the truth. Let's just put it that way. Coming in at number 6 from 1975, we have Sabotage. So Sabotage being the least best of the albums I consider to be the classic great Sabbath albums. This one is the one where the cracks were starting to appear very slightly. The fiasco of the album cover, for a start, that album cover wasn't supposed to be used. They were told that what they were going to do with the mirror and all that stuff, and they thought it was a great idea, and they were told to just turn up and do a couple of test shots to see how it would look. And so that's why they are dressed the way they are dressed. They were not intending to look like that. They turned up in whatever they were wearing. Bill Ward, a massive alcoholic at the time, just grabbed a pair of his wife's tights and put on a jacket. Ozzy Osbourne wearing a big kimono thing. Geezer Butler said that Tony Iommi looked like a Spanish waiter. Just kind of funny, because he kind of does, you see. But yeah, they just turned up and did these shots and thought, okay, yeah, it looks good, we'll use that. And then before they know it, the album's been pressed, and there it is. And they're like, well, what the fuck? Anyhow, too late now. That's your album cover. Great. But I still love it. There's something iconic about it. There's some great fucking songs in this album, let's face it, like Megalomania, Symptom of the Universe, Am I Going Insane I like as well, to be honest, even though that's kind of like a radio-friendly single. I know a lot of people didn't like that one, but I think that's fucking great anyway. It's a great. But yeah, Symptom of the Universe being like the ultimate song on this album. And apparently the ending of that, where it goes into the kind of like acoustic, sort of Spanish acoustic, kind of like jazzy ending, that was an outtake, that was a joke. They did that for a bit of a laugh, but then they decided to keep it in. So it wasn't originally going to go from like heavy to that. They just thought, well, fuck it, actually, it's kind of interesting. And I'm glad they did it, because it is interesting. It's like a weird way to end the song. The song was later on covered by Sepultura, and a really nice version of it, and like multiple other bands have gone on. So that's like quite an iconic Sabbath track, actually. So it's quite an important album, even though the album isn't like their most amazing. It's got these amazing touches on it, if that makes sense. Anyway, let's move along. So we're now at the top 5, the 5 best Sabbath albums in my humble, not so humble opinion. So what could possibly be at number 5? It is in fact Sabbath Bloody Sabbath from 1973.
I thought, if I don't come up with anything, we don't do anything, because they're all waiting for an initial riff. And without the initial riff, what do you do? Because we were a riff-based band, you know.
I just didn't know what the hell to write about anymore. I mean, it's like album after album. I was trying to get away from all the black magic and all that cobblers like that we were supposed to be associated with. And I never got any help. It was just from anybody. I mean, it was just like, in the old days, Ozzy'd like come out with like titles, or he'd come out with a chorus line, and that gave me inspiration to write the rest of the song. And all that had dried up.
Yeah, this has an amazing album cover, like people sort of screwing on a bed of death. It's one of the most satanic, like scary-ass looking Sabbath album covers you could get. The S's look frighteningly like the SS. It's a terrifying thing. It's a scary album cover, man. If you're looking to get like banned or like brown paper bagged in Walmart or whatever, this is the album. You know, this is one of those albums you get that's going to happen. You even got the 666. Am I imagining that now? You got the 666 on there as well. Yeah, I mean, great songs on this album as well. Sabracadabra, Killing Yourself to Live, The National Acrobat. So yeah, that's the song about the best sperm finding its way. I think I got that word wrong. Anyway, sperm. Best sperm finding its way through the fighting its way to get, you know, to be a person or whatever. I don't know, explain it. I read this in the Geezer Butler book, what all these songs were about recently. Because Geezer Butler, also, let's not forget, he wrote all the lyrics to these songs. What would happen is Tony Iommi would come up with the riff, Ozzy would come up with the melody, sing whatever, and then Geezer Butler would go and write the lyrics out. And that's what happened with basically the majority of all this earlier stuff. Sabbath Bloody Sabbath is a great song as well, just superb. And there's some interesting like guests on this album as well. You had Rick Wakeman playing the mini moog for Sabracadabra, which was great, absolutely brilliant. And Will Malone on Spiral Architect. So Will Malone, there's an interesting name. So he did the music for a little film called Deathline, starring Donald Pleasance and featuring Christopher Lee. A great film about cannibals living in the London Underground from 1972, I think Deathline was made. We did a little review on it years and years ago. If you go back and look through this channel, you'll find a little review on Deathline. But yeah, one of my favourite films. So yeah, it's interesting. It's got a Sabbath connection there. Will Malone. So coming in at number 4, what do you reckon I put at number 4? What can you guess? Of course, it is Volume 4.
For the time, no, I think it was all right. And Volume 4, the same. That was good for us at the time we'd done Volume 4, because it was the first time I think we'd actually recorded in America. And we went over to LA, and it was great. It was great times.
You got Snowblind for a start. You got Laguana Sunrise, Under the Sun, Tomorrow's Dream, Changes, of course, a great song. They all sat around quite depressed, and that was Tony Iommi playing on the piano, and then they all just came up with this thing all together. It was great. It's a sort of sad, sorrowful song. And then later on, Ozzy redid it with his daughter, Kelly, as well, in the early 2000s. And they had I think it was a hit. They did a single with that. It was nice, actually, sort of father-daughter thing later on. The album cover featuring Ozzy Osbourne on stage. Nice album cover. Cool touch. Iconic looking. Just a great album. What more can you say? Good stuff, man. Good stuff. Coming in at number 3, we have Paranoid from 1970.
And of course, the first question that was asked was, why are these people in the charts? Because we were so underground.
Press absolutely hated us. The press that we based in London couldn't stand us because we were getting all this massive big following in the rest of England without ever going to London.
So this was their second ever album, and it's fucking great as well. The lineup's so good. Iron Man, Paranoid, Planet Caravan, Electric Funeral, Hand of Doom, War Pigs. Fucking hell, man. What a solid album. A lot of these tracks have gone on to inspire so many great bands as well. I mean, Faith No More covering War Pigs, just to name one of them. Hand of Doom is such a great song as well. Iron Man, I only recently discovered that Iron Man was actually written about Jesus Christ, according to Geezer Butler. Who would have fucking thought it, you know? But there you go. About how a crowd can turn on an icon. It's, yeah, interesting. It's such good work in this. Such great work. Planet Caravan, also, that was covered by Pantera later on, wasn't it? In a very, very good version there. I love it. I love that song anyway. The effect on the vocal on that is just so fucking good. I'm going to do a song with that vocal effect on it at some point. Yeah, it's got to be done. It's got to be done, man. But yeah, Paranoid being like their most famous song of all time, probably. Apparently, like, even the rest of Sabbath didn't know what Paranoid meant when that was written. So that was Geezer Butler, and Geezer Butler suffered from depression throughout most of his childhood and adult life. He kind of learnt to combat it later on. He said that antidepressants were like one of the greatest things he ever discovered. But yeah, he grew up with depression at a time when people didn't have depression. You know, it was a taboo thing. So writing about it and writing about paranoia and kind of misery were just great outlets for him. So that's what Sabbath kind of enabled him to get his emotions out. So it helped him do that. And the fact it was a dark kind of like, you know, gloomy band, he was able to actually put that stuff out without standing out too much. So it was a great kind of way of hiding in plain sight for him as well, I think. But the writing, that's why the writing is so superb. It's great. It's coming from a place of kind of despair, which is just wonderful music. So it's a fucking great album to listen to. The album cover makes no fucking sense whatsoever. You've got this like warrior in pink holding a sword running out of a forest. I mean, I guess the album cover could make you feel paranoid slightly. Like, what is this? But no, the album was supposed to be called War Pigs. That was going to be the track of the album. That was going to be the album cover, but they worked out later on. Well, basically, so what happened is the album was called War Pigs. The war pig on the album cover obviously connects those dots. The album was running short. They needed another like 2 or 3 minutes, just one more song to complete the album. That's when they went and wrote Paranoid. Now, isn't that strange, man? Their like most famous, biggest like hits of all time was just a thing to quickly add on to the album to make it complete. I love things like that. That's just weird, man. That's like fate doing its weird fatey thing, you know? But yeah, fantastic album. There's only 2 albums in their entire catalogue that I think are better than this album. Let's move on to those now. So, coming in at number 2, we have Master of Reality from 1971.
The Black Sabbath album that means the most to me is this one right here, Black Sabbath's 3rd album, Master of Reality. Tony Iommi, the band's guitar player, in my opinion, never sounded better than on this record. He sounds great anyway, but on this record, his tone is like lava. It's incredible. The rhythm section is elastic and intuitive. Geezer Butler and Bill Ward, my favorite rhythm section in rock and roll. They're in Black Sabbath and they are magnificent on Master of Reality.
Now, why do I put this album higher than Paranoid? I don't know. Probably because of listening to it more than that album in particular. But there's just something about it. Every track on this album is fucking solid. The album cover, a little bit uninspired. You know, it's just, there's nothing to it really. Just written as is, embossed. But I still love it. I didn't have the album growing up. I had this, like, someone gave me a CD wallet when I was about 12, 13 years old. And this album just happened to be in there as a loose disc. And I loved the first album and a few other albums, so I listened to it and fuck, blown away, man. Blown away by it. Sweet Leaf, After Forever, Embryo, Children of the Grave, Solitude, Into the Void. Fuck, these are great songs. These are just, every song on this album is a great one. It's superb. It's even got the lovely Orchard, which I love as well. Just a kind of like a softer side of Sabbath, you know. But again, just great. I don't know how to like even explain. The lyrics are all superb as well. It's one of those things like when an album's bad, you've got a lot to say about it. When an album's this good, I just run out of fucking steam. I'm like, well, it's brilliant. Go and listen to it. I like it. It is, therefore it is, you know. I'm just going to move on to the top number one at this point. I'm just going to leave that as it's superb. Go and fucking listen to it. You'll understand if you haven't yet. So, coming in at number one, the greatest Black Sabbath album of all time for me is and always will be Black Sabbath by Black Sabbath from 1970.
We just got in the van, put our equipment in, went down to this region sound, which was 2 4-track machines. We recorded the whole thing in 12 hours, stripped the gear down, got in the back of the van and drove it to the ferry. And that, we thought that's the way people make records, you know. 12 hours, bang, it didn't cost 900 quid.
I mean, I have a history with this album. As I say, from being a child, my dad playing it to me as like a 4 or 5 year old child and listening to the thunderstorm and the bells and everything, you know, just I mean, Black Sabbath is just an amazing song. The Wizard, I mean, what have you got? Behind the Wall of Sleep, NIB, Evil Woman, Sleeping Village, fucking hell, you know, this album for me is like a solid throughout album. And Ozzy's voice is different on this. He's like an octave lower. I don't know what happened there, but he went more high pitch. The further they went, the more cocaine they got. Weird, there's a connection there, isn't there? But anyhow, a deeper Ozzy and a slightly deeper band, like a darker, gloomier, sort of foreboding sound. More blues, heavy blues orientated as well, as they kind of started out that way. There's something about this album that still resonates really highly with me. I don't know what it is, but well, also a couple of covers on this album as well. I always considered it to be like their work entirely, but no. Warning was a cover by Ainsley Dunbar, Retaliation. And Evil Woman was by a band called Crow. Not particularly well-known tracks to cover, which is a good idea, actually. If you're going to cover stuff, you might as well cover lesser-known tracks, because then people think it's you for years and years and years and years, like the Black Sabbath album. But yeah, I just think, I don't know. I'm running out of steam again. Like, this is just a fucking great album. You cannot, like, for me, it's like unsurpassable, I guess. They never quite got anything this amazing. They did amazing stuff, but this is like the ultimate for me. The ultimate. It's one of those greatest albums of all time. Like, some bands do that. Like, their first album is just like my favorite. Like Queen, I think I could maybe Queen by Queen is my favorite by them. Led Zeppelin might be another one. You know, it's like there's certain bands out there that just something kind of like idyllic about idyllic. We'll say that. That might be a made-up word. There's something amazing about the first album that you just can't kind of... King Crimson, there's another one for you. Just can't seem to like get past that and find anything that's quite as good. System of a Down, their first album. Nothing they ever did was ever quite had that impact, if that makes sense. I don't know. Anyhow, not going to waffle on anymore. That is it. That is my my worst to best Black Sabbath albums. If you disagree, drop in the comments. Don't be a twat, but just be nice. We can argue this through. We can ride it through. But yeah, I think a lot of people might agree with what I've said. A lot of people might disagree. I don't know. Everyone's entitled to their opinion and all that. But I'd love to hear your opinions on what you think your favourite lineup would be. You know, from all 19. I didn't include obviously like live albums and the outtake albums and like. What else? You've got compilations and all that. There are some great compilations and live albums out there as well. They're all worth checking out. But no, we just decided to we just went for the studio albums today of under the Black Sabbath name, if that makes sense. Yeah. Okay, so thanks for watching the video. If you've lasted this long, you've got more patience than I have. Please like and subscribe and all that bollocks. And join us again soon when we make another video about something else.
Never say